What is happening, you guys? Welcome back to a Tuesday tune-up on the Let's Go Win podcast, where the goal, the intent, why we are here is to help you be happy, healthy, and wealthy. And the gentleman I'm going to talk to today, he's got just a really, really unique, interesting background. And the subject matter that we're talking about is the relentless pursuit of becoming who we are meant to be. And the guest that I have, John Henry Parker, is a former U.S. Marine and behavioral assessment analyst who writes about his personal journey through trauma, grief, recovery, and personal transformation. He is dedicated to helping people who suffer from grief, loss, and trauma, along with their supporting families. Parker's first audiobook, Transitioning Veterans: How We Get in Our Own Way and What to Do About It, provides valuable insights on trauma and the critical mind, and it's available on Audible and iTunes. John Henry, brother, I appreciate you coming on today, and we had such a nice conversation off the air. I'm really looking forward to diving into this with you today.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm looking forward to the same.
Well, first off, let me just say thank you for your service. And I don't mean that half-heartedly. I mean that fully. Anyone that is a veteran that has put work in, has supported our amazing country, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And obviously, trauma is not something that's new. You hear the term PTSD is often, referred to veterans. I guess I'll start, brother. Is that what got you into this work, or what's kind of your story into why this work is so important to what you're doing today?
Well, I had a very tough upbringing with a combat veteran father. He was in the Marine Corps in Korea, and then he was in the Air Force as a reconnaissance photographer in Vietnam. Just really traumatized alcoholic, and so I grew up with dealing with that unpredictability and the violence inside the house. And then I was raised in a bad neighborhood in Southwest Phoenix, where a lot of violence, a lot of drugs, a lot of bikers, a lot of craziness, a lot of fights, a lot more trauma. And then I went in the Marine Corps, and just more violence, and so. But I was fortunate enough as a young boy to have a matriarch in our family, an elder named Gladys, who saw the violence going on inside the house. She understood what was going on, and she mentored me from a very young age that I was going to do something extraordinary with my life. And I believed her because she said it, and she could see the future, and she really understood, that I was going to be an adult far longer than I was going to be a kid. So she started provisioning me to save my own life and the hero's journey that I was on early on. So even though bad things were happening all around me, I always somehow knew that I was being purposely guided along like an iceberg. Regardless of the winds on the surface, it's getting borne purposely along by the depth of the currents. So there was always something solid. But that's really what got me into this work is personal development, transformational development. Like, I wasn't going to counseling. There's no way I was going to go to counseling after getting indoctrinated into this warrior ethos. Nobody wanted to go to counseling. But personal development, I could read, I could listen, mostly listen to audiobooks and go to seminars and retreats, and self-paced. And it really, really opened my eyes to transformation. And I got out of the Marine Corps. I had very limited vocabulary, very small range of emotions. And so by getting into personal development, I was able to mimic and see successful people and how to communicate, and the deep work. And then going through lots of different certifications and trainings, I was able to retrain how I needed to be in the world, and kind of never look back.
What's fascinating to me is when we say trauma, we say grief, we say, loss, that is not subject to just certain people. That everyone will experience a grief. Everyone will experience a trauma And oftentimes people don't even understand that the way I'm behaving as an adult could and likely is indicative of something that occurred maybe even before I had long-term memory. And this is the part that I love the work that you're doing, because everyone will experience grief at some point. Now, whether they have the tools and really the understanding, that's where I think it's so important, the work that you're doing, the work that personal development does, to say, look, it's going to happen. It's not an if, it's a when. And there's some real tools available to you so that you can access some of these things that are hardwired or in our subconscious that we don't even realize. That's why I'm acting this way. So how do we continue, brother, to just let people know that it's okay that you're not okay? It's okay that you're not feeling 100% because you have experienced trauma, you have experienced grief, you have experienced loss, and it's not uncommon. In fact, it is, everyone has experienced it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's either preparing for, going through, or coming out of transition, and that can be at any level, right? And then pre-verbally, even before we can speak, our mind is trying to grasp what's going on around us. And if there's a lot of violence, a lot of anger, a lot of tension, okay, even in the womb when mom's pregnant, you know, there's this epigenetically, all of the thoughts and the feelings and the emotions that are going on are informing our neurology. They're really, really embedding ourselves like a hologram, is the way I look at it. Psychologically, somatically, ontologically, you know, emotionally. There's just so much going on in how trauma is stored in our mind and body, that I think the most important thing for me was getting in possession of some of the facts that I could understand. Like I understand and I can identify, and I write my book. My book is about trauma. It's about visceral, experiential listening or reading, where you're helping somebody in being informed by being in the experience, but not telling them how to live their life. Here's what happened. Here's what I learned from it. It allowed me to then move on to this next chapter. And this work follows the arc of the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell's work, where, you know, at the end of the journey, you come home with this magic elixir, as he calls it, and that magic elixir is who you become. But backtracking and rewinding, getting in possession of all the facts you can possibly get in front of is the most important thing I could say. Like the ACE scale, the ACE assessment, adverse childhood experiences assessment. I talk about it a lot because it's just simple. You can go to like truesage.com. Friend of mine founded that, and it's you can take a 10-question survey, and out of 10 questions, if you scored 4 yeses out of the 10, then your chances of having problems with alcohol, drugs, violence, you know, long-term diabetes, hypertension are pronounced. And if you have a 6 or more, statistically, a person will lose 20 years off their lifespan. So when I took the ACE scale and I was a 10 out of 10, it freaked me out, because I've been doing this transformational work, including plant medicine work, including Native American ceremonial work, to really kind of excavate and get down into the shadows and the darkness of trauma. So I've done a lot of work, but it freaked me out. So I'm like, okay, now I'm doing the smaller work, polishing work. So I'm putting years back on my life, because I know I'm no longer carrying the amount of rage and tension that's going to burn me out. So now I'm working on, like, how do I watch my thoughts? How do I observe my thinking? Your thinking creates your emotions, and your emotions create the chemical soup that your body generates. That's like Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton's work. So I'm really just focusing on personal development, thought leaders, and kind of just going in and taking what I can to piece this together for myself. And this book is about each chapter building upon the next, of going from the experiences of trauma and how do you discover what comes next. And then it gets into mindfulness, non-duality, plant medicines, all kinds of things that are more aspirational.
Yeah, and you and I were talking off air. I just got back from Costa Rica doing 3 plant medicine, specifically ayahuasca ceremonies. And for years, about 4 years, I've researched on ayahuasca specifically, but I didn't understand, even till I got there, how you said the word sacred and how long these medicines have been around, and the ability to access your subconscious, the ability to reach places that, unless I'm in a really, really, really deep meditative state, I still don't know if I can get there. But there's this enhancement, or at least that was my experience. And I have to say, the word work is exactly right. It's not for the faint of heart. This is real work to get in there to say, I want to live my best life. I want to experience true joy, peace, love. And it's not woo-woo. I mean, this is really, really deep work. And I have to say, the experience was transformational. That's the perfect word. And I know that you said you've done some ceremonies with ayahuasca and other plant medicines. If somebody were listening to this and they really were stuck and they just didn't know what to do, they know something's not right, they know that they experienced, some of these really challenging childhood traumas that often people don't want to face, but they also know I'm not living their best life. What would you say to them, John Henry, to say you have options, you really do have some tools available to you if you're willing to do the work?
Well, if you're willing to travel and you have some resources, there are ayahuasca ceremonies going on all over the world. This has been discovered, and it's a big movement. But also ayahuasca, like you said, it's not for the faint. You go into this, and it's a powerful experience. I've been using for thousands of years. So ayahuasca for me was a pretty profound experience. But if somebody's sitting back saying, I want to do something that's safe, a little more controlled, medically prescribed ketamine. There's ketamine clinics all over the world where you can have an anesthesiologist or a psychiatrist actually administer ketamine. It lasts about 45 minutes to an hour. It's a profoundly spiritual experience, and it allows you to it moves past the thinking mind completely. Like ketamine's one of the safest anesthesias in the world. So it's a mild, you're being sedated, but you're turning off your thinking mind. So that's a controlled environment. There's an organization called Better You Care, better, the letter U, care.com. And Dr. Sam Zand, he's a psychiatrist, and he's got a growing number of clinics around the country. He's a good friend of mine, and I've worked with him. So that's a little safer if you just want to say, how do I dip my toe in and have an experience? Because our mind is a meaning-making machine. It's a mechanism that needs to make meaning. And if you can turn that off and you can set aside your experiences of trauma, you can transcend those things. It's like laying down a superhighway of new neural networks. And people come out of it all the time. They forgot that they had trauma. They forgot they had any symptoms. And you can build a life from there. For me, I traveled around and did about 19 ayahuasca ceremonies. And when I talk about this, the main thing I would say is I found real love and a real joy, which I didn't even understand. I was 52 when I did my first ayahuasca journey, and I found such a profound sense of joy that I knew that I never had joy, not 1 ounce of joy in my life. A lot of trauma, a lot of achievement, a lot of accomplishments, but I found a place for me that was not just the absence of trauma and conflict and aggression, and that there wasn't even the possibility of it. It was such a beautiful, sense of being in pure awareness that it's like soul retrieval. That's the way I would sum it up the most. I went back in, and the way I look at it is we were a clean hard drive when we came into the world, and then all this shit happened to us. And what this is setting all that stuff aside, all the meaning making, all the triggers, all the craziness, and you're surrendering to an amazing sense of pure awareness. There's a supreme intelligence outside of our conscious awareness, even right now. And it's because I'm such a control freak, man, it flipped me out. I couldn't surrender to it. And I didn't purge for 18 journeys. You're supposed to purge, throw up. It's part of the ceremonial aspects where you're moving things out of your body. And I didn't purge until my 19th journey, because I just couldn't let go of control. But I found joy. I got all these benefits from it. But when I finally purged, it was a spiritual experience.
Yeah, and Paul had also mentioned ketamine as well, and he said better you, and he used it at home. And I guess that's what I want people to understand, is that there are so many tools available to help access things that are really challenging to get to without the use of, whether it's a plant medicine or something that allows you. And again, I'm not an expert, not by no means, but I will say what you said, for me, I found a level of peace and forgiveness. And I didn't go in with that intention. I mean, John, I literally thought of people I hadn't thought of in 20 years. And not only did I forgive things that maybe they had done, but more importantly, I forgave myself for some of the wrongs that I had done that I didn't realize were sitting in there. And I don't want to make this about me, because this show, I want to focus on what your book is doing. But I do, when we get on this subject, I just want people to understand that there are ways to access this. And when you do, like you said, you unlock a level of consciousness, and it allows your true self to come to light, that true light to shine. And it's beautiful, man. It's absolutely beautiful. I want to ask specifically with the book, when did you decide I need to write this book? I need to get this out there because I have all this information stored up here and I got to get it out to the world.
Well, it started off as a therapeutic writing project that was never going to see the light of day. Okay. This is like my journals. This is really, really private, transparent, vulnerable, visceral storytelling. And I noticed the more I wrote, the more I got it outside of myself, and I was able to process it and make sense of things. And I did a lot of work around this to kind of move the trauma, the charge of the trauma, out of my physical body, because my psyche was just holding on to all this stuff. So it's very therapeutic for me. And I wrote it under my grandfather's name, so nobody would even know it was me if I did publish it, And then my wife, she's just like, just a lot of soul searching, man. I just, I didn't want to put it out there, but because of my great aunt Gladys and because of the support of my wife and a bunch of people, they're like, after reading it, they're like, this is going to help a lot of people. And what do you really want to be known for? What's your legacy? What do you want to be known for that you existed? And I had a son who passed away after he got back from Afghanistan, and he and I did a lot of this work together before he passed away. And so I thought about Danny, like, why should I do this? And I got all green lights, but I was just so resistant. Like Stephen Pressfield's book, The War of Art, it saved this book, because I had so many different forms of resistance that my crafty mind would find ways to keep me busy. Even though I was passionate about writing, I just wouldn't sit my ass down in the chair and do it, because I had, of course, all of these busy things that I had to do all the time. He calls it resistance. So I had to really look resistance in the eye and identify all the ways I was squandering my time and not writing, not creating. And a big inspiration for me was watching a documentary called Finding Joe. It was funded by the Joseph Campbell Foundation. It's about finding Joseph Campbell. It's about his life. And there's a really cool graphic in the documentary about the hero's journey. that all great stories from every tribe and every culture in history all draws from this monomyth, as he calls it, that follows the same arc of this hero's journey, like Luke Skywalker in Star Wars and his epic journey, Braveheart. Like in any great story, follows this character going off into the wilderness and going through trials and coming back and discovering who they become. And when I saw that, I put it in PowerPoint and I created little word snippets, and I said, I wonder what my life looks like when I look at the hero's journey. And I put like hundreds of little snippets, and then I created my table of contents. So this is really an organic process that I would recommend to anybody therapeutically, even if you just write it and burn it. Get it outside of yourself.
I love that, brother. And it's so true. When you write, you're able to get this stuff out of your head. But more importantly, whether it was your wife or whomever really said, you know what, John Henry, you need to get this out to the world. You're going to help so many people. You received that therapy. You received so much by writing it. Now let's share. It's beautiful, brother. I'm so glad that you did. You came a couple of words that are just so important in my world as well: resistance and surrender. And the more that I sit with these things to really understand what I'm resisting is really what often that's what I need to surrender to. And that's when beauty and abundance and love come from. But God, man, we are hardwired, or at least I am, to just resist so often. I'm looking at the time, brother, and I can't believe how fast this has gone by.
Yeah.
I want to give you just open forum, whatever I didn't know enough to ask you that you want to make sure to share with the audience as we start to wrap up.
So the book is called Be the Dawn in the Darkness. It's a term that I heard growing up. In a lot of dark nights, the only thing I knew for sure is the sun was going to rise, and I would wait for it, and it was scary, but I knew that's what, and I had a great aunt who was the dawn in the darkness for me. She's the one that shared the term with me. And then I was a dawn in the darkness for my son. So it was really a profound, realization that needed to be the title. And then the subtitle is The Relentless Pursuit of Becoming Who We Are Meant to Be. And that's really what it is. It's a relentless pursuit. You don't have to have all the answers, but I've just been so fortunate through my life. My great aunt, Glad, she said, pay attention to the messages that you seem to meet by chance, because they're often the ones that are here to teach you the most. So this book is about paying attention to those messengers and how it informed me to move on in my life and that relentless pursuit. And, really focusing on when I was a kid that I'm going to be an adult a lot longer than I'm a kid. Now, little things that she dripped on me until I was in my 40s when she passed away. I'll just give one away that's really helpful in the book. Is she helped me make a promise to her that because my dad was so violent, that someday I would be a father, most likely, and that I promised that I would never hit my kids in anger and I would never have them live in fear of me. And when my son was about 8 years old, I made that agreement with him, and we never broke it. So we were able to break a generational just trauma with the men in my family. And so I made a difference. And because of that simple agreement, I never had the violent separation with my son that a lot of children have with their parents. So it's a book about transformation. The first half of the book is really about trauma, but it's about this matriarch, Gladys, mentoring me the whole way through. And then about 50% of the book, the second half, is more aspirational. And I'm an adult. I'm no longer this abused kid, and I'm out of the Marine Corps, and I'm just getting into the field of personal development, literally working for Tony Robbins and Tom Hopkins and all kinds of different authors, because I wanted to immerse myself in the personal development field, not just read or listen to a book. So that's about it. I mean, it's just I've gotten a lot of great feedback from a lot of important people that they couldn't put it down. They read it in one sitting. I hear that a lot.
Well, I can't thank you enough for doing it. I see that Paul's already he's looking to order that book right now, and a good idea, Paul. I think that's amazing. You know, not everybody had a Gladys in their life, and what a blessing for you to have her as a guide to really let you step into your light and continue to do that. And brother, I just appreciate you coming on and sharing this message because, again, this isn't something that's selective. It's not this person has trauma, this person has grief. Everyone that is walking this planet has it, and not always do they know how to deal with it. And I think the work you're doing is so vitally important, brother. I just appreciate you.
Well, same here, man. I've enjoyed listening to a bunch of your podcasts. I'll continue to do the same. And if somebody wants to look for my book, it's on Amazon. They can go to harvestingwisdom.com, harvestingwisdom.com. And if they're interested in helping veterans or they are a veteran, go to transitioningveteransbook.com, transitioningveteransbook.com. And that's my first audio book. And it's all about how to deal with triggers and trauma in their critical mind that we all have that is hijacking precious moments from our lives, and how to breathe, how to really, really transcend the triggers and live your life.
Well, I love the word. It's one of my favorites, transcend, and the fact that you're helping so many do that, John Henry, is amazing. So thank you, brother, for sharing. Thank you for putting this work out there, and I know you'll continue to do so. And thanks for sharing, man. It literally, I hope everyone shares this because everyone is affected by what John Henry's talking about, and there are tools available to you. All right, you guys, I told you we're here to help you be happy, healthy, wealthy, and literally all three of those. When you address some of these things that have come into your life, whether you chose to or not, it didn't happen to you. It did happen for you. And I don't care how negative or nasty that shit is. It did happen for you. And it allows you to help others when you get through, when you really access that amazing you that it's in there. It is, but often you need the help, just like John Henry's providing through plant medicine, through, different modalities that can access so you can be your best self. Make sure to share this with someone, please. And I appreciate y'all. We'll talk to you soon.